Insert disc 2.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Insert Disc 2. Today I have a very special guest with me, Amiga Bill from the Guru Meditation. Hey, Bill.
What's up, Bode? Thanks so much for having me on. It's a huge honor to be here. I'm a big fan of your guys, and it's so cool to be on your show. Thank you so much.
All no problem. We're glad to have you. Hey, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do, what you do with the Amiga and the Amiga scene?
Wow. Well, I try and do a lot with the Amiga scene because I love it, and I've been doing it since 1987 when I got my first Amiga 500. And I guess it's hard because I do a lot of things with the Amiga. I'll break it down to 3 parts. Like, priority number 1 for me is my user group. Not my user group, our user group. We have something called the Westchester Amiga User Group. We're a user group that meets about 35 minutes north of New York City on the first Thursday of every month. We're still going strong. The group started, and I wasn't there at the very beginning, but started around 1987. I took it over in 1989. And yeah, we've been going every month, almost every month ever since. And meet on the first Thursday every month. And we also have special meetings throughout the year. I have a party at my house where we just do like retro gaming and Amiga gaming. And then we have special guests come in. We had Manny from the Apollo team come in and give us a great vampire demonstration. So we try and throw in some special meetings throughout the year as well. So that's Amiga thing number 1 is WAUG, Westchester Amiga User Group. And then from WAUG, came something called the Guru Meditation YouTube channel, which I do with my buddy Anthony and partner in crime at Westchester Amiga User Group. Anthony and I met when I was 12 years old, man, and we've been like best friends ever since. And we've always been like a huge fan of podcasts, and we always just wanted to. The whole reason why we like the user group is because we like to get together with other people. We like to socialize. We like to make new friends and hang out with really creative and people who inspire us. The Amiga community is filled with so many like creative, talented, and really, really nice people. We just wanted to, extend beyond the group now that we have this amazing thing called the internet, which we didn't have when we first started the club. So like it started out as like, you know what, let's make a video for people who couldn't make the meeting. So we're like, let's do that. And then we're like, you know what, we love podcasts. I'm a video professional for a living. And so we're like, you know what, instead of doing a podcast, let's just make a little YouTube channel for anyone who can't come to the meeting. They can see like what we were going to demonstrate, and it'll go something like that. And then all of a sudden it started to catch on. And Anthony and I are like, oh wow, this YouTube is a lot of fun. Let's try and stick with it. And we have, both of us have large Amiga collections. And during the dark ages, shortly after Commodore folded until I don't know, maybe like 5 years ago, we still got together, we still met, but not as many people were using their Amigas. I didn't use it as much. I still used it every now and then, but not as much as I do now. And the whole point of the channel was just to like bring things out of our collection, get reacquainted with them, and we want to make videos about them to preserve the history because we both love history and we both like respect where all the technology comes from. So we want to just preserve this history. Like someone who maybe had a Digiview back then can watch our video and be like, oh yeah, I remember Digiview, that was cool. Or someone who never had a Digiview and always wanted to see it work can check out a video about Digiview. So that's kind of the goal of the channel, is just to bring out some old hardware and software and demo it for people. But then we also do other things too, because Anthony and I exhibit at the Vintage Computer Festival East every year. We have an Amiga exhibit there. So we want to, we'd like to get out in the real world and share our experiences with our viewers. So I'll do like show reports from VCF East, or I went to Ami Party in Poland a couple of times and I made a video about that. So I like to just get a little bit more personal and, take the viewers on the adventure with me. So that is number 2. And then number 3 is I started this Twitch channel where I do live streams over on Twitch. And I started that, first of all, I just started it as like an experiment because I wanted to practice streaming when no one was looking. Mm-hmm. So I knew I had like a small audience there. I'm like, I can just experiment over here. And I also wanted to start it because Guru Meditation is really a team effort, man. It's me and Anthony together. But there are plenty of times when life gets in the way and we can't get together. And I want to be able to still do a broadcast and still do something, still hang out with the Amiga community when I couldn't hang out with Anthony. So that was another reason for starting the Twitch channel. So I stream on Twitch. I try and stream about once a week for like 2 hours, but it's always a little bit changing because I freelance for a living. So there'll be some weeks when I can stream like 3 days and other weeks where I go like 2 weeks without streaming at all. So it's a little hit or miss, but it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you are fully immersed in all the aspects of the Amiga, from collecting to the in-person community to your virtual community on Twitch. I want to talk a little bit more about the user group, because I think that is something that's very unique in this day and age. Back in the 80s and the 90s, there were user groups for all kinds of platforms all over the country. But it seems like when the internet became more and more of a thing and more information could be found by just looking it up rather than attending meetings, those have kind of dwindled. What is so special about the WAUG that makes it people come back, week after week or month after month?
It's really special, and I think it's really a blessing that we have it. There's the thing that makes people come back every month is the friendships. Because the guys in my club just become some of my best friends in the world, and we want to get together and hang out. And that's what it all comes down to. That's the bottom line. But like I said, there were the dark ages of Amiga where lots of people left. No one was using their Amigas from I don't know, not no one, but there was a very small percentage of people not using their Amigas from 1998 to 2011, something like that. I'm just pulling a number years out of my head. But recently there's a whole resurgence in retro. There's a whole resurgence in Amiga, and we're actually getting new members. During that dark period, there was 4 or 5 of us that got together. But now the new members are joining us, and they're coming because again, they've now become friends. They're new friends, which is so cool. And there's things to do again. There's cool stuff to demo, cool stuff to try out, and it's just really nice. There's nothing like having that physical presence and just hanging out with friends. And of course, we get together, we work on the machines. When we meet, our regular meetings, we meet in a mall. Unfortunately, I'm trying to fix that, but we meet in a mall, so we do everything with emulation. The special meetings, we actually set up real Amigas. And then of course, every meeting concludes with a nice night out at the pub. So it's really, it all comes down to really hang out with friends, because there's nothing at the meeting that you really can't see over there. Although when I bring in an ACA 500, right, or when someone from Apollo team comes and brings in a vampire, you can actually see it in real life, and that is definitely an advantage to just seeing a video about it on the internet. There's something special about that. And again, the human interaction, you can just ask a question immediately, get it answered, hopefully. And it's just it's a great vibe. It's a great group of people, and it's really a privilege to have the club. I'm just so happy, and I feel very lucky to be a part of it.
That's amazing. That's such a cool group. You mentioned that members from the Apollo team actually brought a vampire in. One thing that I've noticed since I started learning about the Amiga is that people are really crazy about souping these things up. While the Amiga was current, of course, there was a wide selection of accelerator cards and expansions that you could get, which is understandable. But even today, people are still making things to make their Amiga go faster and faster and faster. What is it about the Amiga as a platform that gives people that drive to do that?
Well, it's a tricky question, because I think there's a couple ways to look at it. One is there's the group of people, right, who love the Amiga for what it is, and they want to retain all the history and keep it as original as possible, and that's awesome. And then there's the group of people who are just I love this thing, let's see what it can do. Because now, we maxed it out back then, but technology has changed. People have learned a lot more. You now have these FPGA boards, and it's wow, we have all this with our beloved Amiga. And it all comes back to the thing. My theory is that the Amiga computer itself has got a personality. There's really something special about it. The Amiga is almost part of your family. And I know that's true for other computer platforms as well. Some people say, oh yeah, the Commodore 64, it was like a family member. Mm-hmm. These computers have personality. I mean, look at the Amiga 1000. You open up the case and it's got the signatures of all the engineers and people who worked on it. And even the dogs, Mitchie the dog's paw print. Mm-hmm. So I think the people who created the machine literally put their heart and souls into it, and that is reflected in the machine itself. And it's something that I can't put my finger on, but I feel it.
Yeah. Now, since you are more a part of that scene than I am, the people that do like to push their Amiga to the limits, that install a vampire card or one of the more modern accelerators, what do you do with all that extra power? Because it doesn't exactly make, your games run better or make things, run. I mean, are there still lots of modern day productivity applications that benefit from that speed increase?
Oh, yeah, there are for sure. But I think it's almost more about here's an Amiga 500 with AGA graphics.
So just
never saw it. Like never
just
saw
because
that
you
before.
can.
We can
It's
do
one of
it.
those things. Yeah.
There's definitely that element too. But then if you're doing things like 3D modeling and rendering with Lightwave, it sure helps to have a faster machine. But the thing with the Vampire that is pretty cool too. Again, I'm not an expert with the hardware end of it, but the Vampire is supposed to like retain like 68,000. It's supposed to retain that heritage. So it's all about like keeping like still using the real hardware. Like I still have this old computer, and now I can do more things with it. I can do things with it that I couldn't do back then, but I'm still using the real hardware. Because the truth is, like, the emulators are just as fast or faster, right, than the Vampire. But the Vampire keeps that hardware still alive. It there's a lot of debate about it, but still, like, this was really a cool thing about the user group meeting. I've always been like, okay, the Vampire is cool, but I have a Raspberry Pi, and it's probably just as fast or faster, right? I don't know why I need this Vampire. But then at the meeting, when there was an Amiga 500 there playing like the amazing like AGA demos that I want to play, and I can't because I don't have a Blizzard 060, I was like, that's cool. It's sitting right there in front of me. I see it, and there's that physical experience. And you can like hook it up to a CRT monitor, which is, I know you can do HDMI as well, but there's nothing like seeing that like on a CRT. I love that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's just also about like challenging yourself. That's the thing that draws me to the Amiga in the modern times as well. Like I'm a cinematographer and a photographer, and now we now have like these incredible digital cameras with resolutions that you never dreamed of with the Amiga. But by limiting yourself, by like not like now, like if I think it, I can create it with my camera and like After Effects almost. It's like it's almost like there are no limits, which is really great because there's no limit to your creativity. But at the same time, like if you use this old hardware that does have limitations, it also like pushes you to be more creative in other ways. So that's what I'm enjoying with the Amiga. I'm enjoying taking some like modern photos and some modern video work and seeing, how I can like enhance that with the Amiga. Like how can I give it like a unique look with the Amiga, and also now I have more experience. I'm more educated in my field because back then, I was a teenager and I was just learning about photography. Now I have a lot more experience. Now I'm like, okay, with all of my experience and knowledge, like, let me see what I can do with the Amiga. Like, let me push it to where I always wanted to push it, but I couldn't because I didn't have the experience and the maturity yet.
That's awesome. Let's go back to your teenage days, to your early days with the Amiga. What drew you to the platform to begin with?
Well, the first thing that drew me to the Amiga was the games, like no doubt. I used to, buy the games for like my Commodore 64 and my Atari, and on the back they would show you different screenshots of all the different platforms, and it would always be like you'd see the Amiga and you're like, oh man, like I
if
wish
only mine looked like that. Yeah,
if only mine looked like that. And I always dreamed of having one. But the Amiga 1000, was quite pricey. Yeah. And then when Amiga was bought by Commodore, those engineers are brilliant, and they figured out a way to put that technology into the Amiga 500 and deliver it at a much more inexpensive price point. And at that point, my dad, who has just been like super, super supportive of me, went out and purchased it for me. And that was, one of the best days of my life. And I'm so thankful that, I had parents who were so supportive too. My mom was a stay-at-home mom and my dad's a teacher. They're not loaded, but they, they just went out on a limb to buy nice things for me. And I appreciate that so much.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Do you still remember the day that you brought it home?
Christmas Day, 1987.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah, that's so cool.
I had it out and I was playing Barbarian by Psygnosis. What else? Marble Madness. I think those are my first two games.
Of course, in 87, I mean, the floodgates hadn't really opened as far as the software yet. There were still kind of it was sort of a limited release those first couple of years. So you were limited on what games you had. I know that we covered Marble Madness was one of the very first releases for the platform at all.
Yeah, Marble Madness is great. And it's also like Marble Madness and Arkanoid. Those are two of my favorite, arcade games, and the Amiga version was just so close to the arcade version. Absolutely. I was just like, wow, I'd like the arcade in my house. This is amazing.
That's right. Now, did you stick with the 500 for very long before you upgraded to a different machine?
Yeah, I had the 500 for probably until about 1990, 1991. And then my neighbor actually had a 2000 and he sold it to us at a great deal. So the 2000 became my main machine. and I had an 020 accelerator in it. I had a nice like whopping 40 megabyte hard drive in it, and that was my main machine. I used the 500 for mostly games, and then for all of my artwork, I would use the 1200. I used like Imagine, Deluxe Paint, Art Department Professional, DigiView. That all went over to the 2000.
That's awesome. Were you able to use some of the tricks that you learned? Well, let me ask you this: when you started taking courses in college for this stuff, video production and stuff like that, were there any Amigas in use at the labs or anything like that?
There weren't, but that was what was pretty cool. I went to school I went to college in 1993, right? But I started doing the art projects in like 94, 95. So the Amiga was still like pretty cutting edge at that time.
Yeah.
And a lot of the schools, they were still running like old Chirons, to do their titles and stuff. So then I would like come in with my like 3D graphics that I made in Imagine and DPaint, and I was still knocking their socks off.
Yeah, man, you were ahead of the curve right there.
Yeah, I was still ahead of the curve there.
That's awesome. So it's so cool how the skills that you learn just as a hobbyist, working with these pieces of software in the 2000 had a direct effect on your current career.
Oh, they sure did. There are two big things that, pointed me in the direction of my career. My dad teaches TV production, so I've always had a video camera around the house. Even in the 70s, we had this big 3/4-inch camera and this huge like wagon that he used to like move around to the camera control unit and the recording deck. So there was always a camera around the house. And then the Amiga obviously had a huge impact on me trying to be an artist. But the funny thing is, I never really thought it could be a career. I always thought it was kind of a fun hobby. My real career would be like computers and IT, like to use it, I have to like do the serious stuff to make a living. And then the art stuff would just be for fun. But then things changed. I got a job in IT when I was in high school, and I realized that it wasn't for me. I didn't really enjoy going into like an office and a cubicle every day. And I was like, wow, I'm going to be doing this the rest of my life. It's not for me. I would like to do something else. And I took a photography class, and my photography teacher was like, wow, you've got a knack for this, maybe you want to pursue this. So I always loved, video and doing videos on the Amiga. I had the video club in high school and all that. And then I was like, and my teacher in college just told me like, wow, your photography is really good. Like you could do something with this. And then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, wow, all these movies I watch have credits at the end. So these people are doing it for a living. And then I know like there's famous photographers who I look up to, they're doing it for a living. Maybe I'll give it a go too, and I might as well give it a shot. I've got nothing to lose.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, we're going to leave the field of the media for a second, because I'm just really curious. How did you kind of break into the industry that you're in now with the video production and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, well, I'm a cinematographer, so I'm responsible for the look of the piece, and I shoot mostly TV commercials and promos. I also do documentaries as well. Just giving you a little background in case the viewers are definitely not familiar with my work. I was camera on like David Letterman's new show on Netflix called My Next Guest News Introduction. I shot the first season of Comedian Cars Getting Coffee. I did this really cool job with Jonathan Demme, who is like one of my all-time favorite directors, called Justin Timberlake and the Tennessee Kids. And then just like tons of commercials and promos for like Chevy. I even did some Apple commercials, some IBM spots. So yeah, I've been like super lucky to have so many cool projects. And the way I lost track I started giving my resume and I lost track of the question. What was the question again?
So yeah, I mean, how did you start to get noticed?
Oh, right.
In the
right. So then I decided that I wasn't going to go into IT, and I wanted to pursue filmmaking. So I was like, I don't know anyone in the filmmaking business. I don't know what to do. Maybe I'll just apply to film school. Seems like the most logical thing to do. So I applied to a few different film schools, and I was really lucky. I got into my first choice, which was NYU Film School, which is...
I hear they're pretty good.
Yeah, it's a prestigious film school. Like, we had Martin Scorsese teaching there and Spike Lee. So I was just, again, that was a huge opportunity that I'm so thankful for. And I'm so lucky, because it's so hard to get into that school. There's a lot of like really great people who don't make it, who should make it. And there's a lot of people who make it that really don't belong there. But I'm just really lucky that I was able to get in. And I'm so thankful for my time there. And I tried to maximize it as much as I could. I really appreciate that I was able to go there. And when you go to film school, I mean, this is in the 90s, at least. I'm not sure what it's like now. Things have changed a little bit. But in the 90s, like, everyone wanted to be a director. Like, everyone wanted to be Quentin Tarantino. That's everybody wanted to be Tarantino. But I knew that directing wasn't my thing. I'm a camera guy, and I do photography, you know, like making people look good and making things like lighting the scene and making it moody is what I do. So being that everyone wanted to be a director, they all needed a cinematographer to shoot their film. So there was like 5 of us and like 1,000 directors. So I got to shoot everyone's films. And then there was also people who wanted to be producers. And again, they were a super small percentage, even fewer people wanted to be producers than cinematographers. So my friend Justin and I became friends. There were a couple of us in like this little group. And then when we graduated, my friend Justin got his first producing job. And he needed to hire a cinematographer. And this is his first producing job. He doesn't know any real cinematographers. So he called me. He's like, hey, I got this job. Can you shoot it for me? I'm like, sure. And then it went really well. And it was actually a documentary about Savion Glover, the tap dancer. And then the company I was working for is like, you're good with these like new digital cameras, because they were like brand new at the time. Like Mini DV had just come out. A lot of like the really experienced cinematographers only knew how to shoot on film, but I knew how to shoot with these little cameras. Like, we have this new show coming out. It's a documentary show, and it's called The Life, and it's based on ESPN. The magazine has an article called The Life, and they kind of like do a day in the life of either like a professional athlete who's like famous, or they do like more unique stories as well, like a horse at the Kentucky Derby, or like the guy who collects the golf balls at the driving range. So they do all these cool unique stories. They're like, so would you want to shoot that show for us? And I said, sure, I'd love to. So I shot the show for 6 to 8 months, and at the end of the show they had credits, and some people liked the show a lot. It was pretty new and pretty different. Like, not too many people had these small little cameras to do like these intimate videos about these subjects. So people started calling me based on my name in the credits. And then the production company I shot for is also like a really incredible production company. So they hired me to do lots of other cool projects for them as well. So that's how it all started.
Oh man, that's amazing. Now, in your line of work, how much goes into the post-production, or is that just a whole different person? Are you just responsible for providing the footage?
Yeah, I do. I'm responsible. I read the script or, and the storyboards, whether it's a film or a commercial. And then I decide, like how we're going to approach it from a technical standpoint, and how many people we need on the crew, like how many electrics and grips and camera systems I need, like what camera we're going to shoot on. And then when it comes time to shoot it, I'm responsible for like lighting the set and making it look the way the director and the production company wants. And then once it's over, I basically hand the footage over, unfortunately, because I do love and respect the editing process very much, but it's a totally separate thing, because if I were to edit it too, it takes so long to edit that I wouldn't be able to do other shooting.
Oh, sure.
Gigs.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. But one thing I do in post-production is color grading, which has become a really big part of the process, because nowadays with digital, all these cameras shoot a very like flat color profile with like no color and no contrast. And you can dramatically change like what you're saying with the image in this color grading process, where you add contrast, you add color, you change the colors, you can soften people's skin. So a lot of times what I'll do is I will come in for that part of the post-production process.
Oh, okay.
But the flip side to that though is I respect editing, and I love editing, and even like doing the little Guru Meditation videos allows me to see the world from the editor's perspective. And that's important to me as a cinematographer, because I need to provide the editor with good material and material that's going to edit together. So if I don't understand editing, then I am not able to give the editor good material to work with, and they'll just end up trying to make it work instead of trying to make something great.
Have you ever shot a whole bunch of film and just been so excited for a project and see it turn out so much differently than you initially thought? Yeah,
there's definitely disappointing moments for sure, but I'd have to say usually the people make some magic out of the stuff. I work with some really talented people, and I see what they did, and I'm like, oh wow, thank you for making me look good. That's awesome. So when it seems like such a cool job to be able to look at a script, and then everything just pops into your head. You can see all the equipment that you need, and then is the equipment provided by the production company on the shoot then, and you just step in? It's all different. Sometimes, usually it's all rented, right? They have special camera rental houses, because cameras are so expensive. They're over $100,000, for the cameras that we use. That's crazy. So there are companies that just specialize in like renting out cameras, and the production company rents them from these rental houses. And the same thing with the lights, because it's hard for anyone to own it all. Now I own like a smaller camera, and I own some smaller lights. So on the smaller jobs, not every job is big. On the smaller jobs, I can provide like a very, very nice camera and very, very nice lights for a small job. And, there's a lot of other guys that do that as well. Some of them even own like a van or like a 3-ton truck filled with lights. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it comes from sometimes it comes from a private person, but 9 times out of 10, it comes from like a large rental house.
Okay. And what do you think about? I'm sorry, I keep going on about this because I think it's really interesting.
Oh, no problem.
What do you think about companies like Red and all of these, new kids on the block that are producing these cameras that seem like they give you really, really good results for a fraction of the cost of what a traditional, $100,000 camera costs? What can those $100,000 cameras still provide that a Red camera can't?
Well, first of all, the Red camera is one of those $100,000 cameras because like a fully blown Red, like the Red Mantra, which I just shot with, the brain, which is basically just the sensor, is about $80,000.
Oh my gosh! Okay.
Yeah. So but there are cheaper Reds. There are Reds right around the $10,000 range. Okay. But the Reds, I consider the Red like a professional, like a high-end professional camera. But just while we're talking about Red, the thing that's really cool about Red is that they pushed the industry like no other camera manufacturer ever did, right? So you had the holy grail when I was in school. Well, you always want to shoot film, and nothing could have that film look, right? Mm-hmm. When you did your home movies, it didn't look anything like a movie you saw in the theater because film was just so far superior to video. It had better dynamic range. It had better color science. It had 24 frames per second. Man, 24 frames per second was the holy grail. Mm-hmm. And none of these video camera production companies like Sony, or they were so far behind, and they weren't focused on making their cameras cinematic at all. And then like along comes Red, and Red was the first like digital camera where it's like, whoa, like this looks good. Like this is an alternative to film. This is good. And then all of a sudden you got companies like Sony, you got companies like Arri being like, oh wow, like there's something to this. We really need to step up our game. And then all of a sudden, like everything that you see now, I feel like comes from that. Mm. It's like, or maybe not everything, but you know what I mean? Like that was a huge instigator to the scene that we have now in the camera industry. And then to totally answer your question about, it was about the smaller cameras. Yeah, the smaller cameras, like your iPhone can shoot 4K now, which is amazing. And there's a lot of great things about that. Mostly great. There's some not so great things where like people say, oh, my iPhone shoots 4K. It's like, no, it does, but it's not the same as using one of these professional cameras because there's more than just resolution. Resolution is great, and I'm all for 4K and higher resolutions, but there's a lot more to creating the image than just the resolution. So there's a lot of marketing involved. But the cool thing is like the fact that these cameras are so good, like you can get like a DSLR that shoots amazing video, or you can get like the Sony A7S, which is an incredible little mirrorless camera.
Yeah, so I mean, let's take that. Let's take the A7S for example, because I look at footage taken from that on like, I don't know, like somebody's skateboard video or something like that. I'm like, how could that get any better? Like what if you were shooting that with a $100,000 camera? What would be better about that?
Okay, well, it's very interesting. That's a very interesting point because, to be honest, a lot of people can't tell the difference. But a lot of what's better is two things that are what's better. First of all, what's better is like the on-set professional experience. Like when I'm on set, it's not just about shooting, right? There's camera assistants that need to pull focus. There's digital imaging technicians that need to like monitor for me. Mm-hmm. There are clients, which are extremely important, that need to monitor and watch everything. And a lot of these professional cameras are just set up for that level of production, where a little Sony A7S is like a nightmare to bring on to set and have people do video village and do like the professional things that we have to do to make something look like really professional. Mm-hmm. Even though the skateboard film looks great, and it does, it's still not a real movie. You know what I mean? Yeah. but that line is getting more blurred these days, and I think it's really cool because it's like democratized filmmaking, right? Because it put it in the hands of the people. Like you really, even like in the 90s, like you almost like had to know somebody to like get into the business. It was really hard to like shoot on film. But now, like if you have a great idea, the technology of the cameras is incredible. Like you can create something that looks absolutely amazing. And then you have really incredible platforms like YouTube and like Vimeo where you can like be your own distributor and you can get it out there into the world and people can see it, because that was the other problem. Even if you made something great back then, you'd be like projecting it in your basement and for your friends, and that's about it. But now you can like get it out there. So it's really exciting times.
That's cool. So you don't fear the loss of professional like people like you. Basically, you don't think your job is going anywhere anytime soon because it really is a different skill set to be able to manage a whole team of people do a shoot.
It's a much different skill set. But at the same time, there's obviously there's more competition and more people are interested in filmmaking now. So there's definitely, I'm not gonna say like a threat, but there's more competition. You have to stay on your toes. But it is like almost like two separate things. You know, like it's really interesting. I was thinking about this in YouTube recently. Like YouTube is such a unique place because you have like these YouTubers who are getting like have millions of followers and millions of views, but they wouldn't really make it on like a professional film set. Not all, again, that's just a big generalization right there. But then you have people who are great on a professional film set, but they could never make it as a YouTuber. So it's like these two different worlds. So like on YouTube, you have like these like, you know, grassroots people who are like doing their own thing, like in their house, you know, with a Sony A7S, and they're creating like some really great stuff. And then you have, so you can like click on that, or you could click on like a Hollywood movie trailer. Like the difference is like huge, but they're all there and they're all like competing for your time.
That's
so,
right.
Like, you
they're
have
all
the
just
choice,
a click
man.
away. Yeah.
Yeah, you have the choice. Like you could click on that Star Wars trailer, or you could watch an episode of the Amigos. Yeah.
Right. It's really, whenever I think about the people that watch our show, and I think about, you know, we're competing with this because it's all time. You know, it's all, I'm spending my time doing this thing because you can only do one thing at a time.
Yeah.
It is amazing how like you said, YouTube has democratized the platform.
But I also think that some of the people who are YouTubers, right? I think they're also going to make the transition to doing something at a higher level and more professional filmmaking, because if that's what they want to do, YouTube gives them a great start in that. And it's just, if that's their end goal, like they can achieve it. You know, I guess there for them, they can do it. But not everyone wants to work on a movie set or commercial set. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of things. Maybe they're just happy being a YouTuber. It's interesting. It's very interesting times. You know.
Yeah.
I respect both avenues very, very much. I'm fascinated by YouTubers and Twitch streamers who are that popular. Like when there's a 20-year-old kid in his bedroom and like you see his closet door open behind him and all his clothes falling out, but he's got like over 100,000 people watching him. I'm like, wow, there's something to this, man. Like this is cool.
This is the future. You know, I teach middle school, and it's very rare that my kids will sit and talk about a show that they watched on TV. You know, it's all about YouTubers. It's all about people they watch on Twitch. It's that those are the people that young people today are growing up wanting to be, and it's never been easier to be one of those people than today either.
It's so true. Like imagine like explaining to a kid today, oh, you want to watch something, you have to be home at your house in front of the TV at a specific time, one day out of the week, and if you miss it, you better hope your VCR worked. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to see it. Like,
right.
They won't be able to wrap their heads around that. They're like, I want to see it now. Click, there it is.
Yeah, everything's on demand.
It blows my mind.
Can you talk a little bit about your photography work?
Sure. I mean, photography is kind of like my side hustle in a way. Like the photography is what I love photography because it's so personal to me. It's something that, you know, I think about in my head, then I can take my little camera out, shoot it, and then I can do all the post-production myself. It's not a huge production. So it's the things I shoot for my photography are just very personal to me, and they're exactly like what I want to do. So I have done some professional photography, especially when it comes to like shooting TV commercials. Sometimes they have an entire like ad campaign, and they want the person who shoots the commercial to also shoot the stills to keep like a cohesive look throughout their whole campaign. So I've done that lots of times. I've also shot for different magazines. I've shot for Destinations magazine. So I've done like some paid photography work, but it's mostly just like personal stuff to keep myself feeling creative, to feed my creativity, and to let me experiment with different lights, with different lenses that I can't really afford to experiment with like on the job. So I can experiment with these different techniques on my own, see what works, see what doesn't, and then, you know, apply it to my real job.
So what's your rig look like these days? What your still photography rig?
I'm feeling old. I'm feeling behind. I still have a DSLR with a mirror. I have a Canon 5D Mark III.
Hey, that's not an old camera. That's not an old camera.
I gotta say, I've been playing around with the Sony A7S and A7R, and I'm like, wow. Like
the only thing Canon, they refuse to put real video on their DSLRs because they don't want to cannibalize the sales of their film camera or their movie cameras. But man, the 5D Mark III. I mean, do you see an advantage of shooting full frame rather than, you know, with the clip with a Micro Four Thirds?
Yeah, but full frame is awesome because you get the shallow depth of field. I love it. You know, it looks sweet. And then, you know, all the focal lengths are a little bit different. But the full frame is beautiful. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. And, you know, a lot of film manufacturers are moving towards that. Like the red Monstro sensor is absolutely enormous. It has super shallow depth of field. Aeroflex just came out with a new camera, another large format camera, and it gives you that, because the whole goal when you're doing cinematography, not the only goal, but one of the main goals is to create 3 dimensions on a 2-dimensional plane, right? And so we do that with lensing and lighting. And when you have the larger sensor and you can like really make your depth of field shallow or make it very deep, that's very valid as well. But when you have you can use that depth of field as a tool. You have the choices. Say, okay, I want this to be shallow depth of field. I want you to really focus on the character, or I want this to be like really deep depth of field because this is like a huge, wide, gorgeous landscape, and that is the most important thing. That's what I'm trying to tell the story with. I think the full frame is neat, man. I like it.
I think my next camera is going to be the 5D Mark II because I don't roll with the with the really, really high dollar stuff. But the great thing about cameras is that new ones always make old ones cheaper. And
that's very true. It's very true. And the truth is, like, it's really important to be up on the technology and to like appreciate the technology and appreciate all these manufacturers that are pushing it as hard as they can. But what it all comes down to is like the best camera is the one that you have, and the only thing that matters is that like you have something to say with the picture you're taking, or the film you're making. Like if you just want to get your point across, and that's the most important thing. Like it doesn't matter if you shoot it on an iPhone. If it looks good and you are able to express yourself, then you're in good shape. The resolution doesn't matter. You can create beautiful images with any phone, any camera, any resolution. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. They say the best camera is the one you've got in your pocket.
Yeah,
so.
For sure. The lighting is key, man. The lighting is so important too. That's something that's hard to learn, very difficult to learn, and something that I focused on in film school the most because I knew nothing about it going into film school. Like I understood what a camera was, what a lens was, but I didn't understand what lighting was.
It's a funny story with the Amigos. We've gone full circle where we started out with no studio lighting, and then I bought a bunch of studio lighting. And I was not happy with it. I don't think I spent enough. That was the problem. Because sometimes cheap lighting is not as good as, or, no lighting's better than cheap lighting. Mm-hmm. And so now we've put everything back and we just bought a better webcam, and that compensates. But, sometime if we ever get together, I need to learn some things about studio lighting from you. Because that's the one aspect of the Amigos I wish we could do better with.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I would love to help out. And I can give you one piece of advice that Michael Barrow, who was the gaffer on the original Sex and the City. He was a legendary New York gaffer and then became a great cinematographer himself. He was kind of like my mentor when I was first starting out. He said that a bare light bulb can look beautiful as long as you put it in the right place. And that's what it all comes down to. It all comes down to like where you place the light.
Yeah. No, that's
even more so than the type of light that you use. It just comes down to like where you put it. That's the most important thing.
I'm sure that's true.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to talk to you about all of these high profile shoots that you've worked on, whether it's Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee or the new Letterman show. Do you have any amusing anecdotes with working with these big stars?
Oh man, yeah, there's quite a few. I can tell you that Alec
Baldwin, you can talk about at least.
Yeah, Alec Baldwin, they cut out a lot from that one. he was on fire. He didn't even so the whole point of Comedians in Cars is that Jerry Seinfeld is like, we have all these great new cameras, they don't require a lot of light. I want to make a show where myself and my guest like forget about all the cameras. Like, I want no lights, I don't want any cameras on our face. I just want it to be an extremely natural conversation with myself and my friend. That's all I want. He's like, no cameras in the face, no lights, no nothing, like stay away. So when we picked up Alec Baldwin, like he was just going off in the car, and it took him like 45 minutes. He was just going off, and he's like, Jerry, he's like, when are we gonna start the show? I've been here for 45 minutes. And Jerry's like, this is the show. He's like, look, we got cameras over here. And Baldwin's like, son of a gun, you got me, Jerry. and then he hammed it up even more.
That's great.
Man, funny anecdotes. I'd have to.
Do you find that it's easy to work with people like David Letterman? I mean, how much of it is you versus how much is it the director in terms of face-to-face time with the guy?
The director and the producer definitely have the most face-to-face time, but I also have face-to-face time, especially, on some of these commercials and shows. Like, they want to make sure they look good. They want to make sure they look their best, and that's all on me. So I have to have a good rapport with them as well. And, I have to light them the right way, and I'm standing there talking to them. And especially, that's from the commercial side, but from the documentary side, I get, very close to my subjects. I did this this project to raise awareness for clean water for Africa, and I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro with Jessica Biel for 7 days. So we got really close, and we saw each other in like the darkest moments. So so I had plenty of FaceTime with that group of people.
Wow.
So it's every project's a little bit different, but I do have interaction with them as well, and it all comes down to respect. You have to it's like I'll never quite understand what it's like to be a celebrity like that, and some of them like handle it better than others, but you just have to respect the person, treat them with respect, give them confidence that you're there to like help them and make them look their best, and you're not there to exploit them, and you just have to earn their trust. And that's what it all comes down to. What's
the most starstruck you've ever been working with somebody?
I guess it would be either Bill Clinton or Barack Obama, just because they're United States presidents. And it's like, wow, like these guys are real famous. And LeBron James as well. I have a nice story about LeBron, actually. I was doing a show called Nike Battlegrounds, and it was his show where he was training these young kids how to play street basketball. And we were shooting the promos for the show. So we were out in Akron, Ohio, where he's from, and shooting on like these courts that he donated to the community. And we had like all these like lights and like rain effects and all this stuff. And he was out there for an hour, trying to get all the shots we wanted, slam dunking, doing 3-pointers, all this stuff. And then like after we were shooting, like instead of just like getting into the car and going home, he just started playing basketball with like all the kids in the community who were there watching. It must have been like the most amazing night for them ever. He was such a good guy, man. It was really, really cool. Like he's like, no, I'm not going home. Like I built these courts for these kids, and I'm here, and we're gonna play some basketball. It was really nice to see.
It does your heart good when you see things like that. Not everybody in Hollywood's a total jerk. And
no, exactly. There's another story I was going to tell you, and I just forgot, about someone being nice, and I can't remember.
I'm sorry.
I'll see if I can remember it. I thought of it as I was telling you the LeBron story, and I forgot. Sorry.
That's okay.
Editing.
So
Bill Clinton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hit me.
So Bill Clinton, he actually, they don't live too far away from me up here. They're in Westchester. We should invite him to a Westchester Amiga user group meeting. Maybe he's into the Amiga. But we were shooting some promos for the Boys and Girls Club, because he's heavily involved with the Boys and Girls Club, and we were shooting them at his house. So it was pretty amazing. We got to go to his house, and we shot them in the barn, and that's like Bill's hangout spot. That's his man cave, the barn, like Bill's barn, right? So the director, like we're all like a little intimidated, man. This is like former president of the United States. We're in his home, and they told us like, Mr. Clinton has a very limited time. He has to get to an event. So just get your stuff and get out, essentially. Because respect his time. So the director was like certainly like nervous. So Bill Clinton comes over, and for the first thing he says, though, is he kind of like lighten the mood a little bit. There's all this construction happening, and obviously the construction affects the sound. And he shows up, and he's like, hey guys, I'm really sorry about the sound. He's like, my septic system's all messed up. I'm having it worked on, and it was true. Like they were literally like digging out the septic system. So he was kind of like lightening the mood. So he came in, he did the promos for the Boys and Girls Club, and everything was cool. The director was like, thank you. They only did like one take with him because they wanted to let him go, and they're like, you can go now, Mr. Clinton. And he's like, okay. And so he got up, and then he started like asking me questions. He's like, what kind of camera is that? And I started telling him about the camera. It's like, oh, that's cool, because he's actually very much into filmmaking.
Oh. And
then we were like in his office, and he started like giving me a tour. And like I looked over on his desk, and he had like a Bill Clinton marionette puppet, and he picked it up. He's like, ah, and he was like playing with the puppet. And then I swear to you, this is unbelievable, but there was like a bright yellow book on his bookshelf. And I was like, I'm like, what is that? Like, what is this bright yellow book on this, this bookshelf? And it was Impeachment for Dummies.
It's hilarious.
It was hilarious. Yeah. And then like he showed me like this sword that the leader of Japan gave him. He's like, that's my samurai sword. He's like, don't touch it, sharp, it'll cut you. And so he just started showing me around his house. It was really amazing. It was definitely something I'll never forget. And meanwhile, the director's like, oh man, he's showing Bill around the house. I could have done like 2 more takes. So that was very cool. Let's see, other stories. I thought, and again, I was telling you the Bill Clinton story, and I forgot. I got one about Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio. Let me think. I don't know. Let's put it this way. So Martin Scorsese is a genius, right? And he can be known to he knows what he wants, and he's an artist, and that makes him, at times he can be a little difficult to work with, right? So I was shooting these promos for a movie called Shutter Island that he did with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Very scary film, I think, right?
Yeah, and we were part of like a press junket. So like when they're selling the film, they like rent out a hotel, and then all the actors go around from like room to room, and they do an interview with E, and then they do an interview with Access Hollywood. And this was a promo that I was shooting for American Movie Channel, AMC. So everyone like was warned. They're like, look, Martin Scorsese is a very focused man. His time is very limited. When he comes into the room, like, please, like, don't look at him, don't engage with him, just let him come in and do his thing, totally professional, and get out. And we were like heavily warned by the producer. So it was, everyone's a little nervous.
Yeah.
And of course, like Martin Scorsese is like a lot of us idolize him because his films are absolutely incredible.
Right.
So Martin Scorsese comes like marching down the hall, and he goes up to, one of the main, I'm not sure if it's the president of AMC or a big person at AMC, and he gets into like a little bit of a debate with that person. Let's call it that, okay? And he's upset that they're putting commercials in his films. He's like, and they're editing them. He's like, I put a lot of time and effort and thought into like every single frame of this movie, and now my films come on this channel, and they're edited, and I don't appreciate that. And then the AMC was very, very like smart response. Like, look, like we're just trying to introduce your films to like a younger generation, a new generation of people, and like we're doing the best we can to preserve their integrity, blah, blah. So he was like, his feathers were ruffled. So like he comes into the room, and everyone like heard this discussion in the hallway, and everyone was like super, super nervous. And then and Martin Scorsese comes in, and we were shooting with the 5D. We were just talking about the 5D. And this is when the 5D first came out, the 5D Mark II, and it could do like video. And it was like all
HD
the rage, like full frame, it could do video. But Martin Scorsese wasn't like privy to that because he's using like he's using Aeroflex cameras his whole career. So he comes in, he walks in, everyone's hiding. There's like 5 camera operators in the room, and then he sits there and he's like looking around. He's looking at the table. He's like, what is this? He's like, is this a photo shoot? I didn't come here to do a photo shoot. I came here to do an interview. And he's like looking at me because like I'm the one behind the main camera. I'm like, oh god.
Oh man.
Like, I don't know. Like I'm in trouble. I don't know what to do. Like I don't know what to say. And I was like, these are actually, I'm like, Mr. Scorsese, these are actually, they look like photo cameras, but they're actually like shooting video. And I'm like doing my best to sell them. And he's just like looking at it and he's like trying to like process it all. And then all of a sudden, like Leonardo DiCaprio like walks into the room, and he looks at the camera. He's like, no way, are these the 5Ds? I've always wanted to shoot with these cameras. That's awesome. And then Scorsese's like looking, he's like, all right, it's cool. It's cool.
Oh, he saved you. Leo saved you.
Like, oh, thank God. Leo saved me. And then he looks at Leo and he goes, does Bobby know about these things? Bobby is Martin Scorsese's like longtime cinematographer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Robert Richardson. Everyone, his name is Robert Richardson, but Martin Scorsese calls him Bobby.
So
one of the all-time greats.
You've done so much, and you've had all these great experiences. What do you think? What would it take for you to be able to be a cinematographer on a feature film?
I'm still trying to figure that one out, but no, I tell you what it takes. You really have to shoot a lot of things for little to no money. Mm-hmm. And you need to network with people who want to shoot feature films. Like that is obviously when I went to film school, that was the goal that I wanted. That was the end goal. But when I got out of school, I needed money, right? So I couldn't really afford to not work and volunteer to work on all these small films. So I kind of just started, I got that job, shooting that TV show, and I was making good money, and it's hard to walk away from that.
Sure, absolutely.
So I kind of got into that whole loop, so to say. And like once you're in that loop, it's hard to get out of that loop. Whereas I have other colleagues who are amazing cinematographers and super successful and really well known today. They all kind of took like the independent film route. But it also, but it takes, you have to do that. But it also takes talent, and it takes luck as well. Because there are some really talented people who did that and they're not famous now. Yeah. So it takes a lot of luck, and it takes a huge commitment, because one of my mentors always says, shooting movies sounds really glamorous when you're at the bar, but that's the only time it's glamorous. Like you're away from your family for 6 to 8 months, working 6 days a week, 60 hours a day. It's absolutely brutal. And all the same thing with like the episodic TV shows. It's brutal work where, doing the documentaries, I get to be like immersed in like these different cultures, and the commercials, they're much shorter shoots. So I can go out, have a really cool experience, and then it's over. And there's the double-edged sword. It's like when it's over, I have to go get another job, so that makes it difficult. But yeah, I think it's luck. It's aligning yourself with people who are making movies. Like if you align yourself with a commercial director, they're going to call you for commercial work because that's what they do. But if you align yourself with a feature director, they're going to call you for feature work because that's what they do. So it's about making those relationships and committing yourself to that lifestyle.
It totally makes sense that, you're sort of known as somebody that does these 3, 4, 5 types of things, and you do them really well. So people call you when they need those things done. Yeah. And there's people that do the movie thing that it's the same way, I'm sure.
The flip side is that now that I've been really lucky and I've been doing great at what the commercials and documentaries. Like now I can actually afford to go shoot a movie for the cheap.
That makes sense.
I'm actually I'm looking to do that right now. I'm looking for the right project to shoot. And hopefully I'll get that opportunity because I can really, the movies will just let you be creative. The great thing about the commercials is you have lots of toys, lots of budget, but at the end of the day, you have to, sell the product, do what the ad agency wants because they know how to market that project, whereas with the films, they have a lot of pressure. They have marketing pressure too, but you can kind of branch out a little bit more. You can get a little more risky with it,
Yeah. I can understand that. Hey, let me ask you a question I've always wondered about. Obviously, it's about how residuals work on the production side. So I'm sure like Scorsese, he gets residuals, right? Whenever he's on any project he's affiliated with.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. Everyone's deal is different, but for my deal, it's a buyout, unfortunately. So I'm paid as a daily or weekly employee, and that's it. I don't have any ownership.
So every time that McDonald's commercial comes on TV that you shot, it's not like you're cha-ching.
Except once, I was in a Febreze commercial. It was a 2-camera shoot, and it was an ad campaign where the Febreze people would raid people's houses and they would say, show me like the stinkiest thing in your house. And then they would spray it with the Febreze and it's like, oh, cool. Like it destroyed the odor. And so it was a 2-camera shoot. It was like PricewaterhouseCoopers style when we were barging into people's front doors, and the other camera guy got me in one of the shots. So then because I'm on screen, that's a totally different ballgame. Now I did get residuals for that one. That was cool.
Now did you have to get a SAG card and all that stuff?
I was eligible for one. So I could have gotten one, but I'm not an actor, so.
Hey man, you were on the screen.
That's a whole other thing, man, about the whole Twitch thing, going back to that and YouTube thing, man. It's been a really great experience because I've always been behind the camera my whole life. Yeah. And now that I'm in front of the camera, it gives me a lot of appreciation for what those people are going through. Mm-hmm. So it's really important to understand all the facets of production so you can, sympathize with everyone regardless of their job on the set. So being in front of the camera, even in the most minuscule form, on Guru Meditation or Twitch, you're still in front of the camera and still putting yourself out there in public. So it's a really, really good learning experience.
You've gotten to experience all the sides now because of this, the
really
editing, the cinematography, the acting, you've done it all.
Yeah. I was really scared too. I was like, wow, it's really, I was, first of all, the first time I looked into the camera, I was like, oh my God, this is so scary. And then when I thought about it, wow, I'm putting this on YouTube, anyone could potentially see it. They probably won't, but anyone could see it. It was really intimidating. But then, everyone in the Amiga community has just been so supportive and I met so many friends with it. I was like, okay, all right, this is cool. That's awesome. I can do it now. And I've gotten better too, which is cool.
Yeah. Well, your streams are very popular. Whenever I pop in on Twitch, you've always got tons and tons of people from all over the world watching you. So congrats on that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thank you. I mean, it's so cool. Like I said, it's just hanging out with friends. That's the way I look at it. Yeah. Because it's not like that. I'm not like Ninja, who gets 100,000 people at a time. That's amazing, and it's such a small niche market. That,
success is always relative on the internet,
Yeah, exactly. And I've been super successful with all that stuff because I've made new friends. And we were talking before about it's how valuable it is to meet in person, with WAUG, but at the same time, the internet is also, without the internet, we wouldn't have new members. Our club went from 4 or 5 guys, and now we have we get anywhere between 7 and 14, 15 people at a meeting, but our pool is 30 people now, and it wouldn't have happened if I wasn't putting myself out there on YouTube and Twitch.
That's great.
They work together,
Hey, before we wrap this thing up, let's circle back around to the Amiga momentarily.
Sure.
Give me your all-time top 3 favorite Amiga games.
Always a tough one. I'll go Shadow of the Beast, Another World or Out of This World as We Knew It. TV Sports Football.
Wow. I would not have picked those 3 games for you in a million years.
That's funny. Well, because I also, runners up are like we were talking about Marble Madness and Arkanoid, but I don't really, I mean, those are Amiga games, but they're really Atari games, right? They're Atari
they're ports.
arcade games. So they're Amiga ports. But Another World is like Amiga original, right? TV Sports Football, Amiga original. Also loved Earl Weaver Baseball. I love sports games. And, Shadow of the Beast, Amiga original. And Shadow of the Beast, it may not have the best playability, although it's not as bad as like, I remembered it. Like I was like, oh man, like Shadow of the Beast, that was like the best game ever, but it was really hard. And I never really played it well then. I never played it well, but it was such like a technological achievement between the parallax scrolling and the incredible music that it was almost like a demo, right?
Yeah, it's a playable demo. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
But I learned like more recently when I went back to play it that if you start to like memorize it and memorize all the moves, like you can do it. It's really, really difficult.
It's all about learning the patterns and putting the time in for sure.
Yeah. But the one that, of course, Lemmings.
Yeah.
Lemmings, so maybe
Lemmings is up there for me too.
Lemmings, Shadow of the Beast. Now, if I were to play it today, like if I were to choose a game to play today, I would go Lemmings because it's great playability today. It withstood the test of time. And Shadow of the Beast is more of a nostalgia.
That's your rose-colored glasses.
Yeah, but I still love it. I still think it's beautiful. Like the graphics are still beautiful. Pretty. The music is still great. Yeah, and like I said, you really can learn the playability of it. Yeah.
All right, last question. What do you think? What's your dream for the Amiga in terms of what would you like to see coming out forward, either hardware wise or something software wise? What would you like to see happen in the future for the Amiga as a platform?
Wow, that's a tough one. Well, not really that tough. My first dream is I want them to make new keyboards. I know the A1200 guys are planning on doing that.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, new keyboards because, like let's say you buy like a brand new Amiga 500 or 1200 case, right? And you want to put like a standalone Vampire in it when that comes out, or you want to put a Raspberry Pi in it. Right now, the way that you do it now is you take an Amiga keyboard and you attach it with like a Kira, right? Which is cool, but it means there's like a dead Amiga somewhere. And, sometimes that's fine because Amigas die. It happens. And, if you can, keep it alive by using this keyboard, that's cool. But like, I'm lucky I don't have any dead Amigas and I don't want to take the keyboard out of one of my Amigas to put it into like an emulation machine. But a new keyboard, now that would be awesome. Like if I have a new keyboard that fits an Amiga 1200, 500 case and can attach to a Raspberry Pi or a Vampire, that's awesome. And apparently the new keyboards are also going to be, they're going to be like USB or Amiga. So you can take them, like if your real Amiga keyboard dies, you can put the new one in it, or you can use it like USB as well. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's my like immediate dream. Is new keyboards, because I have these cases that I bought and I have like keycaps, but I need to put it together, make it all happen. I would also love someone to remake the Blizzard 060, because that's the missing link for my 1200. I've got an 030, an ACA 1233N in it, which is an amazing piece of gear, and I love it. Like I can do WHD load with it. It runs like a champion, but there's nothing like seeing like the demo scene stuff that requires like a Blizzard on a real Amiga, and that's my dream. Like I would love to have my real Amiga be able to do that, but the Blizzards are old and expensive. So I think if someone made like a new one at a reasonable price point, that'd be cool, because it would be more inexpensive and it would be new. Like, you could still spend a lot of money on a Blizzard and it could fail because it's an old piece of hardware.
That's you bring up a good point. How much would one of those, if you were going to buy one on eBay, what would you pay for one of those now?
I've seen them start at like $700.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So will that do something that the Vampire won't do? I mean, if
the Vampire is actually, I believe, is like more powerful, but yeah, because it's an original piece of gear, you can, it integrates into your Amiga without FPGA or like scaling in cycles like the Vampire works.
I see. So it's really like it's the ultimate dream if you want to keep that period specific hardware setup, is having the Blizzard card. Yeah, exactly.
But that's, again, and that was the cool thing about the Vampire, man. When I saw like an Amiga 500 playing like the latest and greatest AGA demo that requires an 060, I'm like, that's pretty cool. And like when you see that happen in front of you, even though I know the Vampire's inside and it's debatable whether it's real Amiga, whether it's real pure, it's fine. Like, but it was just cool to see that. It was fun. It was really exciting.
That's awesome. Well, you never know with all of the great things that literally seem like they come out about once a month. A new Blizzard card might be in the works.
Yeah, I'm also excited for the Tabor board to come out, because I would love to have a machine that can run Amiga OS 4.1. Right now, I just run it with emulation, and it's cool to like get a feel for Amiga OS 4.1. But in order for me to like really get into it, or like really get into like MorphOS, like I want to have like a machine dedicated to it. So I'm super excited for like Tabor to come out. That's gonna be a lot of fun.
Tell me about that. I don't know what that is.
Okay, so the guys who make the Amiga One, like Trevor Dickinson and his crew, Aeon, they make the Amiga One X5000, which is a beautiful machine but very expensive.
Yeah, it's like a tower, right?
Yeah, the Tabor board is a smaller board, and it's going to come in. The price point that they're looking at now is either $400 or $450.
Oh, okay, much more reasonable.
Yeah, because look, I mean, look, it's going to be a toy for me. Like it's not going to be my main computer. It's going to be a toy to like mess around with the new OS and have fun and try and keep the Amiga alive. And that's one avenue to keep the Amiga alive. So like I could spend $450 on a toy, but when you're spending like thousands of dollars on a toy, it's harder.
Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, and
it'll also bring Amiga to I think it'll also bring Amiga to a wider audience, because if someone else like wants to experiment with Amiga OS, it might introduce them. They're more inclined to do it, especially with no Amiga experience. They're like, all right, I can throw down $450 on this machine, on this board.
That's the biggest thing that stands in the way of like new. There's that Amiga on the Lake Place that's here in Michigan that's trying to sell. They only sell new Amiga hardware, and it seems like that's the biggest obstacle is just the initial price point. I mean, it's not something that your typical hobbyist is want to dip his toe in when you're paying $2,000 just to get in the door.
Oh yeah. No, it's hard. Yeah, Amiga on the Lake is in upstate New York, actually.
Oh, I thought they were in. Oh, never mind. I apologize because they were an official sponsor for Amigathon, so I should have known better.
Yeah, they're on the Finger Lakes in upstate New York.
Okay. Have you been up to their shop?
No, I that is a trip I've planned though. Oh, awesome. It's probably like a 4.5-5 hour drive for me. So, at least.
Yeah, it's not like it's right around the bend.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how much of a storefront they have. I think it's more of an
online
office.
presence.
Yeah. But Aaron's a really nice guy, man. He's really excited about Amiga, and he's someone who I don't even think had Amiga back in the day, but he got really fascinated by it and thought it was cool. And I think that's why he specializes in the next generation stuff, because he's interested in introducing new people to it and the future of it. So that's very, very cool of him.
Well, that's great. Sometime we'll have to have him on the show, because I'm sure he'd be fun to talk to.
Oh yeah, he's great. Yeah, Aaron's a great guy.
Yeah.
Anyone who tries to keep the Amiga alive in any way is a friend of mine. Whether it's making a new game, making new hardware, anything to keep it relevant and keep it in people's minds, you're A-okay with me. However you want to do it. The Vampire guys, like I love it all. Like I want it all. I love Amiga. I want it all.
I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there with you. Well, Bill, thank you so much for taking time for being on Insert Disc 2 this week. We've gone longer than I thought we would. I apologize for that, but I just you're one of the most fascinating figures in the Amiga scene today, and so I was just really glad to have the opportunity to talk to you.
Oh man, well that's very kind of you to say. I don't know if I agree, but if I'm the most fascinating, but that's very kind of you. But I want to say like thank you to you guys, because your Amigathon was absolutely incredible. And I mean, how cool is it? Like a lot of people are like, oh, video games, oh, like old computers, like are you crazy? Like it's just some like weird silly hobby. But like look what you guys did, man. You guys raised like a ton of money and you helped real kids who needed help. Like how awesome is that? And it all happened because of the love of this hobby. So like I have like the utmost respect for you guys and what you did, like doing, turning your hobby into something that helps real people in need is phenomenal. Like it blows my mind. That's super generous of you guys. And man, it makes my heart glow that someone in the Amiga community did that. So thank you.
Well, it was a pleasure, and Amigathon's always a lot of fun. And so I'm just glad that we had so many people that, there's so many kind people in the Amiga community that turned out and donated or sponsored and or just hung out with us in the chat for 24 hours. So it was a real fun time.
Awesome. Thanks. I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, it's about 360 days away. So,
well, it'll give you plenty of time to rest up, because a 24-hour stream is no joke. I never even tried one.
Yeah, it's so good. All right, Bill. Well, why don't you plug all your stuff real quick before you go?
Sure. Okay, so I'm Amiga Bill. Over on YouTube, we are The Guru Meditation, youtube.com/The Guru Meditation. On Facebook, we are facebook.com/The Guru Meditation. Twitter, we're at The Guru Meditate. On Twitch, the live streaming service where I stream about once a week on my own, when I'm not with my buddy Anthony, is twitch.tv/Amiga Bill. We're also on Google Plus. If anyone else is out there on Google Plus, we're The Guru Meditation, I think. But Google Plus is a cool place. I feel bad I haven't given it enough love lately, but yeah, we're on Google Plus as well. And of course, the Westchester Amiga user group, we meet on the first Thursday of every month in White Plains, New York, which is about 35 minutes north of New York City. Everyone's welcome. If you are interested in coming to the group, please get in touch with me. We have a Google group where we chat and decide if we actually are going to meet, because sometimes there's inclement weather, especially in the winter time, so like we'll postpone a meeting, we'll skip a month, or if I can't make it, well, for example, this month coming up we have the Apollo team is coming again to show the latest Vampire, so I want to do that in a space where we can have the real Amiga set up, so I'm going to postpone it till Saturday, from Thursday to Saturday. So it's a little bit of a moving target. So if you're interested in coming, please follow me on social media and get in contact with me personally, and I'll get you into the group to make sure that you don't show up on a Thursday night at the Galleria all by yourself.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Bill. That's all for this week's Insert Disc 2. We will see you next time. Adios.
Thanks, Boat. Keep up the great work.